But the other thing that you were just talking about, Billy, with regard to, and I think Mike touched on it, when you have a major investigation, and Bill, you could talk to this too. Sometimes there's so many people, like let's say, God forbid, a police officer is killed or some major, homicide of a public figure goes down. There's so many people in and out of that case. So you're right. The case detective doesn't have a grip on everything that's being done at the time. However, once the arrest is made and there's a lot of review and you're going to have to go to court and you're doing trial prep, if you're a good detective, you're going to know everything that's in that case file, which could be boxes and boxes. But now we have this captain that probably doesn't know everything that's in the case file. I think that the lead investigator perhaps does. But at the time when it's going on, when you have a task force formed, and I've been involved in a few of those in my career, there's so many moving parts, so many people doing different things. You can't physically know everything that's being uncovered at the specific time. But like I said, once the case, there's an arrest made, you get a good night's sleep, you take a deep breath. Now the process starts to, unfold where you're going to go to trial. You go to trial prep hearings, different things of that nature. So now you're studying all the information and you're putting everything together, and you're going to have a nice, tight case, and you're going to want to know everything that's in there because you're going to be on the stand testifying. And all you need is, like I said earlier, a defense attorney that can poke a little hole into some minor thing in your case, and now he's creating doubt, which you don't want.
100%. Mike, what are your thoughts in regards to why at this point they're really not coming clean as to what in fact happened? And I'm almost feeling, I don't know, I don't want to say we're being lied to, but we're not being told the truth.
Bill, I think that they don't want to get into the weeds and start, having press conferences with really searching answers and, and that sort of thing. I think really what they want is to give answers like we saw with Paul Morrow from Fox who's an inspector from the NYPD, talking to that captain. And he's like, I never heard of Bryan Kohberger. No. It was like, almost like he wants to get through the interview. Not to my knowledge. Nope. He won't say anything. He won't refer to any documents. He won't refer to any timeline. I think he's afraid that the more questions he answers substantively with facts, the more questions there will be. Because every time you ask a question and you get an answer, it opens up another avenue of inquiry. So I think he doesn't want to do that. I think he will be respectful, but he's like, no, yeah, not that I know of. And you're getting these kind of off the cuff kind of, I don't mean that as a joke, off the cuff, like really not well thought out kind of answers. And he just wants to put time in and get through the interview. And I don't think he wants to do anything more than that. And that's enough for him.
Mike, I wonder if there is any thought in the town of Moscow that the town or Idaho University has any civil liability over this. And that would explain everything. If they have civil liability, then that would explain why they're not talking about anything. Your thoughts, Mike? You're the attorney.
Yeah, I'm thinking now, who owned the house? It was a privately owned house. So it wasn't like a city-owned apartment building where you'd worry about, the lights and any kind of, alarms or anything like that. I'm not so sure because as far as I know, and I could be wrong, that's a privately owned dwelling. And it wasn't on the campus. It was like right next to the campus or within real close walking distance of the campus. So I'm not sure if they're thinking that they're worried about civil liability, like as if the security gates weren't working or security guard wasn't on duty that night when the homicides occurred. I'd have to know a little bit more about the actual ownership and the distance where it was with the university. Perhaps if it's really adjacent to, like, say, the property, like it's across the street from property, and maybe security was supposed to patrol down that street and they didn't. Okay, well then maybe there's a little negligence liability there. I'm not sure. I'd have to know a little bit more about the actual physical, location. But that could possibly be that maybe they're thinking that there is some liability. And if there was even one report from, say, poor Kaylee that she was harassed, if she actually made one to the police and it was ignored, or she called up the police and it was ignored, I think that could possibly be a little bit of liability issue. But it's possible. It's possible.
Someone just wrote, I heard SG say it's too late for civil action and has passed the time limit. How do you know, Elsa, if the people didn't file within 90 days? How do you know? You don't know. They could have filed during the time period.
Billy, in New York, I think it's a 3-year time period that you could file a lawsuit of take civil action. So I guess every state is different, but I think the point that we're seeing is evasiveness. It seems like in any communication or press conference, they're being evasive about something. And Billy, I really think it's got to do with the college. Listen, if you were living in that town and you're going to be known for 4 young college kids being slaughtered by a serial killer or a soon-to-be serial killer, you wouldn't want to have that moniker. So I think that they want time to pass. They took down the house. They want to try and get as far away from that as possible. They don't want that negative publicity. They don't want that negative connotation associated with Moscow, Idaho. And I do get that. Believe me, I do. But I don't think that, you should interfere in, criminal investigation, or you should interfere in, specific information being given out. So yeah, politics always has a hand in these type of things.
Araceli Alonso from the chat, I believe the university was concerned with their reputation and future enrollment. That school is the financial backbone of that town. Yes. That's why the house was torn down. Araceli, you're 100% correct. And I hate to beat it to a dead horse, but you're preaching to the choir. We believe exactly that. Something is telling us something here is preventing the investigators from telling the truth, from coming clean. And a civil suit would explain, but we're not sure what angle that could take. Who could they sue? And there's no doubt in my mind that some of these families, especially the Gonsalveses, they'd be sued.